Mr. Chairman, President of the African Development Bank, fellow governors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to be here to participate in the annual meetings of this esteemed institution. I am profoundly grateful to the government of Egypt, especially to Chairman Hassan Abdallah, for hosting this important event and for their great hospitality and support. Mr. Chairman, we are convening these annual meetings at a critical time when our continent is facing overlapping challenges. Among the challenges, debt and inflation levels reached the highest compared to the last decade. As a result, half of African nations, including my country, are witnessing double-digit inflation rates. Conflict, climate change-induced crisis, and external shocks, including global trade volatility and global financial conditions, were some of the factors that hindered the continent's progress and adversely affected its people's well-being. Climate change is the topmost Africa's pressing development challenge. Thus, climate change is exacerbating the level of poverty, inequality, food insecurity, conflict, and migration in many parts of the continent. This necessitates the need to work together to find innovative and durable solutions to address these challenges and unlock Africa's potential at national and regional levels. As a country, the government has continued to take policy measures to tackle the adverse impact of climate change. 2 weeks ago, we have launched the long-term low emissions development strategy of Ethiopia, which would help the country in achieving carbon neutrality and climate resilience by 2050. The strategy will build on Ethiopia's climate resilient green economy (CRG) strategy and its nationally determined contributions (NDCs) of the Paris Agreement. The LEDS strategy also considers the social and economic impact of the transition to a low carbon and resilient development trajectory. We have also continued implementing various development interventions to address climate change and its impact through sectorial adaptation plans for agriculture and forestry, water and energy, transport, health and urban development, with specific measures to reduce vulnerability and enhance adaptive capacity in each sector. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's initiative, the National Green Legacy Program, is among the testimonies to Ethiopia's leadership and commitment to build a green and resilient future for itself and for the region and the world. Ethiopia relies on renewable energy sources such as hydropower, wind, and geothermal for most of its electricity generation. In this regard, the African Development Bank, AFDB, is one of the key development partners which supports Ethiopia's climate actions guided by the country's strategy paper, we call it CSP, which covers the period 2023 to 2027. The country's strategy paper is aligned with our 10-year development plan and high fives. It focuses on 2 pillars, infrastructure development and economic governance. The CSP also incorporates climate change and green growth as cross-cutting issues. Currently, we have 19 ongoing public sector projects supported by the bank in agriculture, water and sanitation program, energy, transport and social, with a total commitment value of more than USD 1 billion. However, mobilizing adequate financing for mitigation and adaptation programs has remained a challenge as we cannot rely on public finance alone. In Ethiopia, hundreds of billions of dollars are needed to fully and effectively finance mitigation and adaptation activities for the next 7 years. Bringing the private sector on board as a key investment driver is quite essential. To this end, we are implementing the homegrown reform, which aims to create an enabling environment for private sectoral growth through private sector engagement in each sector of the economy. We have established a legal framework for public-private partnerships, PPPs, some years ago, and reforms will continue to successfully implement several PPPs, especially in renewable energy. We have also introduced the capital market system to facilitate private sector financing for green growth and other sectors. Moreover, we are going to introduce a carbon tax on vehicles to incentivize low carbon transportation, and thereby reduce greenhouse gas emissions. However, this also requires a strong collaboration and coordination among us, multilateral institutions, and the private sector. No single country alone can tackle climate-related risks. We need to work together and put our concerted efforts. In support of this, I commend the African Development Bank for its continued leadership and support in the region. Especially, I appreciate the bank's effort to mobilize a record replenishment for ADF-16, which will help us address our sustainable development needs and build resilience. The bank is now clearly taking a lead in mobilizing climate finance for Africa and have been a strong advocate for increasing Africa's access to climate funds. Mr. Chairman, as you all are quite aware, Africa has enormous adaptation and mitigation financing needs that go beyond what public funds can provide. In this regard, I would like to thank African Development Bank for prioritizing the climate agenda for 2 consecutive years. This year's theme being mobilizing private finance for climate and green growth in Africa. This is a good opportunity for all of us to reflect and hear policy responses to create enabling environment that attracts and incentivizes private investors, as well as enhancing our capacity to access innovative financing instruments and mechanisms. To speed up sustainable development, we need to attract and mobilize adequate amount of private capital, especially from institutional investors and MDBs, and I suggest the African Development Bank to take the lead. Moreover, the African Development Bank should also support and facilitate the implementation of World Bank and IMF should join the implementation of World Bank and IMF reforms to enhance the capacity of African countries in their transition to low carbon and climate resilient development by aligning with country priorities. Leveraging SDRs as a catalyst enables to mobilize more concessional loans, grants, debt relief, and private sector investment for climate actions in Africa. I would also like to urge the international community to mobilize and deliver adequate, predictable, and transparent climate finance in line with the Paris Agreement and Sustainable Development Goals. To conclude, I would like to express my appreciation to the bank for strong cooperation and support, specifically to the President, management, and the staff of the bank for their continued support and wide-ranging partnership to Ethiopia in particular and Africa in general, as well as their valuable expertise and contribution to this successful annual meeting. I thank you.